Okay, one. And here we are. Happy Monday Fun Day, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Monday Fun Day Wine Trivia. We have a holiday themed trivia for you today. And I brought along Monica Vescovi, who put together the trivia questions and will be hosting today. Monica, what do you have for us?
Hi. So today I'm going to talk about Christmas wine etiquette. And talking about the Christmas wine etiquette, we're going to talk about the Christmas selection, but also Christmas wine pairing. We're going to talk about Christmas wines and opening the wines, and we're going to talk about how to serve the wines.
Great. Exciting.
So, let's start. We're starting with champagne because there's not a more perfect wine to start a Christmas dinner than a champagne. So, what is the service temperature of vintage champagne? 1, room temperature, 15 to 18 Celsius. Lightly chilled, 10 to 13. Well chilled, 6 to 8. Or very cold, 2 to 5 degrees.
Okay. And for all of you who are regular to the Monday Fun Day Wine Trivia, you know, Jeopardy music gives you an opportunity to lock in your answer. Put your answers in the comment section. And for those of you who get it right, you get bragging rights, the ultimate prize. Okay, Monica, everyone 100% agrees that it should be number 3, well chilled.
Well chilled. I see those numbers coming up. I'm very happy to see that because, yes, it should be well chilled. 6 to 8 degrees. You could, for vintage champagne, you could stay at that 8, maybe even going to 9, and for some of the styles of richer, fuller body sparkling wine. So let's go to the next question. We're serving wine. Who should you pour the wine tasting portion to? So, first one, the oldest person at the table. Second, the host. Third, the oldest woman at the table. Or for the youngest man.
Okay, time for all of you to channel your inner sommelier and try to get the right answer for this. Is it 1, 2, 3, or 4? Okay, Monica, we have a tie between 2 and 3. Some people saying the host and some people saying the oldest woman.
Okay, well, when it comes to the wine service, it is the person that orders the wine that is called the host. This is also the person that is going to taste the wine. So when a sommelier or a server approaches the table, they approach the table with the bottle that has been ordered. They're going to present that bottle to the host, and then they're going to pour the tasting portion to the host and possibly to the sommelier as well. Why do they do that? They want to check if the bottle is fresh and it isn't faulty. The most important part at this moment is the wine assessment. If there's a wine fault, the wine can be sent back. So, knowing that, you know that this is the host, the person that orders the wine, is the person that is also tasting the wine. All right, so we have our first wine etiquette and wine service part. So let's go to the pairing. So Christmas, it is my favorite time of the year. So today I invited you to actually my Christmas setting right behind me. But I love to cook at that time. And then when opening a vintage pot to serve with your Christmas pudding, you should consider chilling wine, decanting wine, opening wine right before service and opening wine 3 days before service. What do you think is the perfect answer? I see some of the really good answers. What if someone cheats the person by giving a cheaper vintage? No, this is a vintage champagne. Well, port is actually released only in specific years, and you have to really look into the producer of the port to make sure that they consequently each vintage, when the port is declared as vintage, they are really making the best wine possible at that time. But many of the producers are, and those wines that are declared vintage, they will be excellent wines because they are made for aging. So you can't know the outcome directly at that time when you're tasting, when the wine is young, but you will know in 30, 40, or possibly 15 more years, did this wine from that particular vintage hold up? And that's how port producer, they are building their reputation. So the reputation of the best producers, one of them is right in front of you, Grams, that reputation is being built for really not only decades, but for centuries. So knowing that, where are we? I see number twos, I see some number ones. The key to this question is decanting. When you have a vintage port in front of you, vintage port is stored in oak barrels for a short period of time. Usually it is 2 years, and then it's being bottled. Hence, when it is being bottled so young, with time it will be throwing heavy sediment. So you really want to decant it to make sure that the wine is clear and that you can enjoy the wine at its best. And what you see here at the on this picture, it's tipping hand. It's a larger format of the bottle. So if you have a big Christmas party, I would suggest that you think about that, because it's a really fun wine to serve, and it's a beautiful, elegant addition to the Christmas dinner. All right, so let's move on. Another service question: when serving the wine, who should you pour the wine for last? And the answers are the youngest person at the table, the host, the oldest person at the table, or the sommelier. What's your answer?
Great follow-up question to the earlier question. Okay, here. Most people choosing number 2, the host again.
I see that, and I see some of my level 2 students coming up. Very happy to see you here. So yes, the correct answer is number 2. It is the host. So the host will start with a tasting, but this is not a full pour when they get the first tasting. They're just checking the condition of the wine. The host will actually get the wine at the very end, the proper pour at the very end. But the hardest part for the sommelier, especially when there's a large group at the table, let's say we have 6 or 7 people, perhaps more, and host order only 1 bottle. What's happening here, the sommelier have to be very careful to make sure that the pour is correct and they're not over pouring. So at the end, when they come back to the host, they still have the wine in the bottle. Because if they don't, and the host is actually not getting the wine, this is usually the person that will also pay the bill, and the situation might be very tricky there. So for those there who are the sommeliers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But for those who are willing to become a sommelier in the future, think about it. This is a lot of training, preparing yourself, making sure that you are actually pouring the right amount of wine, and you're dividing in your mind that bottle for as many people as you have at the table. Okay, you've done well. Let's move on. So, which wine glass would you serve 2005 Bon Romanée Le Godichon in? Bordeaux, Burgundy, Hock, or Tumbler? Now the question is, where is the Le Godichon Bon Romanée from? If you know the answer to that question, you know which glass is it going to be in.
So lock in your answers as the music is playing. Okay, and we have most people answering number 2, Burgundy glass.
And this is a correct answer, although I see one answer that somebody put in that I like, and I like to build up on it. There is the universal glass. Some of the companies have the universal glass, and you are welcome to use it. So there are a lot of schools on which glasses to use when. There are some of the suggestions, but it's really you who will be working with the wines essentially, and you will be checking what works best for you. If you are preparing yourself for examinations or you are actually tasting a lot, it's best that you use the same style of glasses each time. Why is that? Because your senses are really getting used to the same wine glass, the same tasting style, the way that you taste as well. So using this very same wine glass when when you're in preparation, when you need to recall that information, for example, in a blind tasting, that if you are studying over for a long time, this is the best way. So those are, of course, suggestions that you can take in which wine glass you can taste, but at the end of the day, it is up to you. All right. So let's get to some food and wine pairing. So what is the best wine match for Christmas poppy seed cake? In different countries, they have different names, Makovitz or Bagley. So you have poppy seed inside with some of the raisins and orange peel, and the peeling is quite sweet. So, knowing that, would that be a Muscadet sur Lit, Chignon, Pouilly Fumé, or Couteau de Lion?
Okay, so we have some people answering number 1, Muscat sur Lit, and some people answering number 4, Côte de Lion. So which one is it?
this one was tricky. So it's all about food and wine pairing rules. Of course, rules are there to be broken. However, there are some rules that are not necessarily worth to be broken, especially when it comes to desserts and especially when it comes to sweet dishes. So what happens here? We have a sweet cake. When you have the sweetness in the wine, in the food, you want to have the same amount of sweetness in the wine. Why is that? Because if you don't match sweet with sweet well, then what's going to come out is the acidity. And it can be at some point even unpleasant because there will be too much of the acidity. So you want to pair the sweet wines, but I didn't put the obvious players, and I didn't put the wines that you probably very well know, like Sauternes or Tokay. So Côte de Lion is the answer. This is a sweet wine made with Chenin Blanc from Loire Valley. And there was a slightly trick to the wine number one, because Muscadet sur Lie, essentially, it's a Melon Blanc grape variety, and it's sometimes, it sounds like muscat, but this is completely different grape variety, and this is Muscadet sur Lie will be the name of the appellation, also in Loire Valley. So, moving on, let's do some service again. When opening a bottle of sparkling wine, you should follow the order. Remove muselet, foil or cork, then remove foil, muselet, cork, remove cork, muselet, foil, or remove label, cork, or muselet. So let me know, what do you think, which order is correct, and I'll let you know what's the proper answer in just a moment. It is tricky, and I'll tell you why it's tricky in just a moment, but I do agree with you that's tricky.
Okay, slowly coming in here. We have Steve saying tricky, as you mentioned, and then we have someone putting one, then mostly twos coming in. Monica?
And that's great, because it is two. So first of all, when you take the bottle of sparkling wine, you want to remove the foil. So you use the perforating part on the foil to take it off. You can cut it off with the service knife, and that's the first part. And then there's the tricky part. The tricky part is that there are two ways to open a sparkling wine. You can open the sparkling wine while removing the wire cage first and then taking the cork out, or you can actually remove the cork along with wire cage. But the way I formed this question, the only answer that could be right is number two, because you cannot remove cork without cutting the foil and loosening the wire cage. And you cannot remove the wire cage without cutting the cork. And removing a label, although you could possibly do that, but I personally like having the label on the bottle. So that was also a slightly tricky question there. All right. So one of my favorite topics, as many of you may know, the mushrooms. So mushrooms are often a part of Christmas dishes, from wild mushroom tortellini to morel sauce. What would be the classic pairing with savory, earthy mushroom dishes? And 1 is an aged Barolo, 2, white Zinfandel, 3, a youthful Zinamavro, or 4, Moscato di Pantelleria. Keep in mind that I'm thinking of the savory entree that you would be pairing this wine with.
Looks like a lot of Barolo fans out there, aged Barolo fans.
And aged Barolo it's a very good choice, because although an aged Barolo will still have the high tannins, but it has the delicate floral notes that will be coming out, the savory, the mushroomy aromas. It is also a perfect pairing with truffle. I see that one person answered youthful Zinamavro. That youthful Zinamavro could be slightly too powerful for the pairing. But of course, again, it is up to you what you're going to enjoy. Perhaps you like the sweet wines with your savory entrees, and you may make that choice as well. So for you, perhaps the Moscato di Pantelleria would be the one. Remember, when we're talking here, we're talking about the classic pairings, but it is always up to you what you're going to choose. All right, so the Christmas time is all about traditions in different parts of the world. So there is a tradition of Muscat de Noël, which is a young muscat released in November after the harvest. And the question is, in which wine region? So it is a Muscat de Pont de Venise, or perhaps Muscat de Fortignon, Moscatel de Setúbal, or Muscat de Ripson.
Okay, we have several people unsure with question marks, a couple of ones, and then someone guessing number 2, and then shrugging shoulders as well. So you stumped the crowd with this one. What's the right answer, Monica?
The right answer is 4, Muscat de Ripson. So this is a French tradition. It is the young muscat that's served for the purpose of serving it right at Christmas. So it's really floral and fruity, and it's released very early, so it can be sold and distributed right before the Christmas time. All right. So in some of the countries, the pâtés or the foie gras are very popular dishes during the Christmas season. The substitute of that can be a mushroom pâté for vegan or vegetarian option. And again, this is a suggestion, but there's a strong classic suggestion to the savory pâtés. And would that be a bandol, Minervois, a Montbazillac, or Cahors?
This is another great question. Okay, someone's saying, John is saying, one of our loyal trivia followers is saying, Monica is tough today. Yes, some tough questions out there, but we have answers here that range between 3 and 4. So Montbazillac or Cahors?
And that's very good. It is actually 3. The classic pairing, for example, for foie gras, is a sweet wine, and in this case it can be a Sauternes, but in this case I chose Montbazillac. And the reason I chose Montbazillac, because it is a great alternative to Sauternes or Barsac. You may not have heard about it. It's great value as well. So it's also made with botrytis affected berries, but it can be a fantastic wine for the Christmas season. So as you see, I'm trying to introduce you to the wines, especially the sweet wines that you may not be familiar with, but again are classic wines. 3 other wines that are there as choices, those are all red wines. Cahors would be led by Malbec, Bandon and Minervois. Well, Minervois will have Syrah, will have Grenache, Bandol will have Mourvèdre. And although some of those may be enjoyable for you, Montbazillac, again, is the classic comparison and classic pairing to the duck pate foie gras. Okay, so next one is about actually sort of a cocktail, not necessarily the wine, but cocktail based on wine. And Christian, I'll ask for your help here because I am not the native speaker. So I'm going to start reading a question, and I'll ask you to read. In which country is
Feuerzangenbowle?
Thank you. A traditional alcoholic drink for which a rum-soaked sugar loaf is set on fire and drips into mulled wine. It is often part of a Christmas or New Year's Eve tradition. And now, the choices are Austria, Switzerland, Germany, or Australia.
So I think everyone agreed that is one of the Germanic countries listed here, 1 through 3. No one picked Australia, which was good because that wasn't my Australian accent. So which one is it, Monica?
So tradition, it's coming from Germany. Although many other countries have somewhat similar traditions, but we'll talk about it in just a moment. So let's move from here and let's move to service again. What should be a serving temperature of Hungarian 5 puttonyos Tokaj Asu when pairing with blue cheese? So 1, well chilled, 6 to 8 degrees. 2, room temperature, 15 to 18. 3, lightly chilled, 10 to 13. And 4, warmed up to above 22 degrees Celsius. What would it be?
Now you're making me hungry.
It is a great pairing, one of my favorites. And there's a specific reason why I posed this question here, because I know the students very often have a low challenge. This is a challenging question, and very often there's this misconception of wine service. So the correct answer, it's actually well chilled, 6 to 8. Not only lightly chilled, but well chilled. So the acidity really comes out, and what makes the perfect balance in sweet wines, it's the acidity that balances sweetness. In a lower temperature, that acidity is slightly more pronounced, and when it is, it balances the sweetness even greater. When you judge the sweet wines, when you taste the sweet wines, the most important thing that you really want to look at, it's precisely sweetness and the acidity. And when there's balance there, you want to take that second sip and you want to enjoy it. And when there isn't balance, it feels sort of like a syrup. So you will know right away which is which. So well chilled 6 to 8 is the answer. All right, so another thing, think after Christmas. We're going to have those magnificent dishes and magnificent wine, and there is usually a lot of leftovers after. Not only food, but also wine. And how to preserve it best? What could you possibly do to preserve it? So, 1, close wine with a cork and place it in the fridge. 2, use a vacuum system. 3, use a blanket system. And 4, all of the above.
Well, the nice thing is in my house, we never have leftovers.
Well, in my house, when we do, I always make a use out of it. And one of the secrets that I have, for when I have a wine that, maybe just was left over for a while and I didn't have a chance to drink it, what I do, I actually put it in a plastic bag and freeze it. And later on, when I make a sauce, when I make a coq au vin, when I make a beef bourguignon, for example, I'll just pull that bag out and use it for braising, for cooking. Fantastic base of all of the sauces. I make my pâtés with wines as well. So never, ever, ever throw away the wine that's left over. Make the best use it. If you have fresh herbs, for example, you can use you can use a little tray where you put in herbs, cover it with white wine, and then you have a ready-to-go sauce, literally in minutes.
That's awesome tip. What's the right answer here?
So all of the above is the right answer. And one thing, if you don't have anything special, you didn't buy anything special to preserve your wines, closing your wine with a cork right after the opening and putting it in a cold place, the fridge works the best, lowers the speed of the oxidation. So even pouring the wine into the slightly smaller bottle or half bottle will help you as well. Make sure that you pour it into the very top. The least amount of oxygen you have between the closure and the wine will help as well. So that's number one when you don't have anything. Then using a vacuum systems. So you can use different system that will allow you to suck out the air from the bottle. And there are a number of those systems out there in the market. You can get the corks, you can get the pumps, and that will help your wine for another few days. Then there are blanket systems, and blanket system I find them really useful. I use it at home when I'm preparing for my MW examination, but I also recommend it to many restaurants, especially when they're selling wines by the glass at the high price range. So you can use this blanket system, and again, there are quite a few of them, but I personally find the Coravin that really works there. And you put in a gas that will actually blanket the wine and preserve the wine. So all of those are correct answers. Now, what happens when you pull that cork of that magnificent wine you bought and you were just hoping that this is going to be a highlight of the Christmas day, and it just doesn't smell so good and it doesn't taste so good? How do you recognize a wine fault in a wine? So the question is, when serving Christmas dinner, you want your wines to be served in a perfect condition. What aromas could suggest a wine fault? 1, damp cardboard. 2, sweaty horse. 3, rotten eggs. And 4, all of the above. So knowing the wine faults and recognizing them is very helpful, because if you are in a restaurant, for example, you can easily send the wine back. But if you buy the wine for your house and it is faulty, you can actually take it back to the store, and the store will take it and will either ask you to choose another bottle, or perhaps will get the return. So it is worth to know what the wine faults are. And I see a lot of 4s coming in, and a 4, all of the above, is the correct answer. So let me break those down for you. What should you expect when you smell a damp cardboard or a wet dog? This is actually a TCA, trichloroanisole, and this is a popular known wine fault known as corked taint. So there's a sweaty horse. Sweaty horse is, or barnyard, it's Brettanomyces. That wine fault actually shows up maybe not as often as it used to, but it still shows up. It generally comes from the unhealthy oak barrel. And it's actually, when that happens, the barrel has to be replaced. And in a small amount, it actually may add to complexity of the wine. But when there's a high level of Brettanomyces, then it is considered a wine fault. Then rotten eggs. Rotten eggs, it's connected to the reductive environment when the wine was made in the anaerobic conditions. So now you know the most common wine faults and most common aromas. You may use that knowledge in the future if you find it in your glass. But the best thing about it is to know when you are able to actually take the bottle and return it into a store and exchange it for an excellent bottle of the same or a different wine. All right. So the next question is coming from my homeland. And the question is, what is the name of spicy hot mulled wine in Poland? Is it a Glock, Grzaniec, Glühwein, or Vin Brûlé?
Okay, looks like a lot of people putting number 2 as their answer.
Yes, and number 2 is the right answer. This is Grzaniec. Grzaniec is spiced up very often with the star anise, with the cloves and cinnamon. We do add sugar to the wine as well, and orange peel, sometimes lemon peel. There are different recipes. But Glock is Swedish, Glühwein is German, and Vin Brûlé it's Italian. So many countries actually have a tradition of preparing the hot wine, especially those that are in cooler climatic conditions, when there's snow in December and when it's cold and you really want to warm up. And when you go, for example, for Christmas market and it's already 5 p.m. and it's dark and cold, that perfect glass of the mulled wine just makes it all better and makes the evening brighter. Ooh, we went back. All right, so this is the last question. It is another food and wine pairing, and the question is, what would be the best red wine pairing for Christmas goose? 1, Gevrey Chambertin. 2, Gigondas. 3, Saint-Julien. 4, drink what you like. What do you think?
Okay, we have a lot of 4s in here. Everyone's saying, drink what you like.
And I do like that answer. There are so many suggestions in the world of wine, what you should or shouldn't drink, but it's really about what you like. drink what you like. Drink what you like, and pair well. Know put them wine pairing basis. Know what pairs well. Know when there's a sweetness, saltiness, acidity in your food and wine. Once you understand those connections, then drink what you like. If you like the red wine with fish, drink red wine with fish. Don't drink a very heavy, high tannin wine, but drink red wine. There is a classic pairing here. The Burgundy, the Gebris could be considered classic, but it is really up to you what you're going to enjoy, because it's all about the people, the atmosphere, the time of the year when you're going to share it, and who you're going to share the perfect bottle of wine with. So, saying that, I wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas. I hope you pick the most beautiful, the most amazing, the most interesting for you wines as well. I hope this quiz will actually help you to reach out for some wines that you may not be fully familiar with, that you may just want to taste and try and substitute for what you have been tasting and drinking all the time. Just reach out and have discovered a beautiful world of wine. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Monica, for this great holiday edition of Wine Trivia. I think it was very challenging, and people learned a couple of new things. So that was great. Always great to have a little bit of a challenging trivia. We have on Wednesday our study hall. So for those of you who want study tips and insights into level 2, level 3, and sometimes even diploma, join us on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. In the meantime, I echo what Monica says and wish you a very happy holidays. For those of you celebrating Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah. And for those of you celebrating Christmas, a Merry Christmas to you. We'll see you back here on next Monday at 2 p.m. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Monica.
Thank you.
Cheers.